The sun was still rising over King's Landing when the first rumor spread through the city like wildfire. 3 dragons had been seen flying over Blackwater Bay. No one believed it at first. Dragons were tales for children, things of the past. But soon the air turned heavy with smoke, and the sky darkened under massive wings. It was real. Daenerys Stormborn had come much earlier than anyone expected. Inside the Red Keep, panic broke out like a plague. Servants ran in all directions, and bells rang without rhythm. Tywin Lannister stood at the war table, his face hard, unreadable. Across from him, Queen Cersei's face was twisted in disbelief and pride. She wouldn't show fear not in front of her father, and certainly not in front of her son, King Joffrey, who sat slouched on the Iron Throne, smiling with a cruel smirk. "She dares to bring beasts to our gates?" Joffrey scoffed, licking his lips. "I'll have her head mounted next to Ned Stark's." Cersei shot him a look, sharp and warning. "She's not a rebel from the north. She has dragons." Tywin's mind moved faster than any words in the room. He wasn't afraid, but he wasn't foolish either. He'd underestimated Robb Stark once, and it had cost him dearly. Dragons, though, this was something else. He spoke calm and cold. "Prepare the scorpions on the walls. Get every archer ready, and send a raven to the maesters. I want wildfire, as much as the city can hold." "But father," Cersei interrupted, "we don't even know what she wants. Perhaps we should parley." Tywin didn't even look at her. "She's not here to talk. She's here to take back the throne." That night the city barely slept. People huddled in their homes, mothers clutched their children, and the smell of ash floated on the wind. From the top of the Red Keep, they saw them clearly, 3 great beasts. Wings like sails, eyes like burning coals. Daenerys stood at the head of her army on the shore, her silver hair dancing in the wind, her face set like stone. Behind her stood the Unsullied, silent and perfect. Beside her, Daario grinned like the rogue he was. And above her flew Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion, her children, her fire, her wrath. Joffrey, of course, wanted to ride out and confront her. He screamed for his horse, for his armor, for his sword, for his armor, for his sword. Tywin denied him, not even raising his voice. "You are not a warrior, Joffrey. You are the king. You will sit and watch." But Joffrey never liked being told no. From the city walls, they watched the dragons fly low. Arrows flew, but bounced off scales. One beast let out a roar that shattered glass in nearby towers. Fire poured from their mouths and turned parts of the harbor into burning lakes. Ships sank, men screamed, and all the while Daenerys stood still, unmoving, unafraid. Inside the throne room, the heat began to rise. Tywin could feel the weight of the old stone walls. Even wildfire wouldn't help if those creatures burned everything. Still, he planned, cold as always. "We have one chance," he said. "Kill the girl. Without her, the beasts are nothing." Cersei turned to him. "And how do you suggest we do that when she's guarded by an army of eunuchs and 3 fire-breathing monsters?" Tywin turned to her. "With gold and silence." By midnight, a rider left the city with a message and a pouch of gold. But Daenerys was not stupid. She expected tricks. The man never returned. The next morning, the gates of King's Landing were opened, not by choice, but by force. One dragon swooped down and burst through the gate with fire and fury, melting the metal as if it were wax. Screams filled the streets. Daenerys entered the city like a storm. People dropped to their knees. Some cheered, some cried, and some ran. But all knew one thing: the Targaryen queen had returned. And she was not here to ask for the throne. She was here to take it. Flames licked the stone walls of King's Landing as smoke curled high into the sky, turning daylight into a twisted twilight. The streets boiled with panic. People scrambled over each other to escape the inferno. No one had seen anything like it, not in this lifetime. Daenerys rode through the city gates, not on horseback, but on Drogon. The beast's wings cast a shadow that stretched across entire blocks. With every breath of fire, more of the city surrendered, not just in flame, but in spirit. Soldiers dropped their weapons, children screamed, mothers clutched babies and prayed to gods who weren't listening, that the Red Keep still stood. From the top balcony, Cersei watched it all, face pale but eyes blazing. She held a cup of wine that trembled slightly in her hand. She refused to admit it was fear. Next to her, Joffrey stomped and screamed like a child denied a toy. "Kill her, send the guards, burn her," he shrieked, veins bulging on his neck. "This is me throne. She's nothing but a witch with lizards." Cersei slapped him hard. The sound cracked in the air. He blinked, stunned, lips trembling. He'd never been hit before. Not by her. "Not like that. Shut your mouth," she snapped. "You're a king. Act like it." Tywin stood at the window, silent. His eyes were fixed on Daenerys and her dragons, calculating every move, every possibility. This wasn't a siege. It was a massacre in slow motion. And if they didn't act, the Lannister dynasty would burn to ash by sunset. "Get the wildfire," he ordered. "We'll lure the dragons into the sky and ignite the barrels near the tower. If we can take one down, perhaps the rest will hesitate." Maester Pycelle waddled forward, white beard swinging. "My lord Hand, if we detonate wildfire near the tower, we risk destroying the keep itself." Tywin turned slowly, his face like stone. "Would you rather lose a tower or lose the throne?" Joffrey ran toward the throne and drew his tiny sword. Nothing more than a decoration, really. "Let them come," he barked, climbing the steps of the Iron Throne. "I'll kill her myself. Bring me my armor." But outside, Daenerys was already moving. The Unsullied spread through the lower streets, shields in formation, precise and deadly. Her banner flew above the city, red and black, the three-headed dragon. Dario laughed beside her. "They're too proud to surrender. They're too proud to surrender. They're too stupid to live," she replied coldly. She raised her hand and Drogon launched upward, screeching. In the sky, Rhaegal and Viserion circled like vultures with wings of death. They dove together toward the tower Tywin had chosen. Inside, the Lannisters braced themselves. "Now!" Tywin roared. The wildfire exploded. The blast cracked the air and shattered stone. A green mushroom of flame shot into the sky. One of the dragons, Rhaegal, took a direct hit. He screamed, a terrible sound that shook the heavens. He crashed into a tower, wings torn, fire leaking from his mouth. The ground shook. A cheer went up from the Red Keep. Joffrey screamed in victory. "Yes, yes! Burn them all!" Cersei didn't cheer. She watched Daenerys' face. The Targaryen queen had not flinched. Her silver hair whipped in the wind, and her eyes blazed hotter than dragonfire. She raised her hand again, and Drogon responded. This time, he didn't aim for the gates or the streets. He flew straight toward the Red Keep. Inside the throne room, the temperature soared. The walls groaned. Dust rained from the ceiling. Tywin looked at Cersei. "We need to leave, now." "I won't run," she said, clutching her son. "Not from her." "You'll die here," he snapped. "Then I'll die a queen." Joffrey laughed again. "Let her come. I'll." The ceiling above them cracked. With a deafening roar, Drogon smashed through the top of the throne room. Fire exploded across the walls. Stone shattered. Soldiers screamed. The Iron Throne glowed red-hot from the heat. Tywin grabbed Joffrey and pulled him away as flames poured down like rain. Cersei tried to follow, her face now twisted in true fear. But Drogon saw her, and Drogon remembered. The last time a Targaryen queen lost her throne, it was stolen by Lannisters. Now the fire would make it right. The Red Keep was no longer a castle, it was a furnace. Fire roared through the throne room, swallowing gold, steel, and flesh alike. Pillars cracked, tapestries burned, and the very walls of the crown looked like they were weeping molten stone. The Iron Throne sat at the center, glowing like a demon's heart, red-hot from Drogon's fire. Tywin dragged Joffrey through a side passage, smoke choking the air. The boy was coughing, crying, now no longer a king, just a scared child hiding behind his grandfather's strength. Behind them, Cersei screamed, "Joffrey! Tywin! Hey, Ben!" She was trucked under a fallen beam, flames creeping closer. Tywin stopped. His eyes met hers, desperate, pleading, but he didn't move. He tightened his grip on Joffrey's arm and turned away. Cersei screamed again, louder, more animal than human. "You coward! You're letting me die!" But Tywin didn't even flinch. He knew the war was already lost. and he would not waste another second on a daughter who had only ever fed chaos. Back in the courtyard, Daenerys dismounted from Drogon. Her silver hair shimmered like ice against the fires behind her. She looked calm, collected terrifyingly so. Not a conqueror in the heat of battle, but a queen executing justice, long overdue. Daario approached, a smug grin on his face, blood on his sword. "Most of the Lannister guards surrendered," he said. "Some tried to fight. They didn't last long." Daenerys didn't answer. She stared at the burning castle in front of her like it was a sickness being purged. The screams, they didn't move her. The death, it meant nothing. She had no interest in mercy. Inside the keep's lower tunnels, Tywin and Joffrey stumbled through smoke-filled corridors. Tywin had one goal: escape. He didn't care where they went. Dorne, Essos, the Hells themselves, anywhere but here. But Joffrey wouldn't stop crying. "My face is burning! My crown! Where's my crown?" "Shh! Silence!" Tywin growled. "No! I want to kill her. I want to. Tywin grabbed him by the throat, slammed him against the wall. "You are not a king. You are a spoiled brat with no spine and no brains. And if you speak again, I will leave you here to die." Joffrey stared at him, terrified, gulping in soot-choked air. He nodded. For once in his life he was silent. In the main courtyard, Daenerys approached the Iron Throne. The fire had cooled just enough to let it hold its shape, but the blades were twisted, glowing, deadly. She stared at it, this symbol of power, of betrayal, of the madness that ran in her blood and in the blood of every king who sat on it. Her reflection flickered in the melted steel. She raised her hand, but did not touch it. Daario came beside her again. "It's yours." "No," she whispered. "Not yet." At that moment, Grey Worm appeared. "We found him." Tywin Lannister, hands-bound, was dragged before her. His golden lion pin had melted slightly. His face was bruised but proud, lips sealed. Daenerys stepped down to face him. The heat of Drogon's breath steamed behind her. "Did you think I wouldn't come?" she asked quietly. Tywin didn't answer. "Did you think your gold, your tricks, your little kings and queens would stop me?" Still silence. She circled him slowly. "You burned my family. You plotted the Red Wedding. You poisoned my house from the shadows." Then her eyes narrowed. "You killed the realm's soul." Tywin finally looked up. "I saved the realm from itself. You choked it with lies," she said coldly. "And now the realm will breathe fire." She turned to Grey Worm. "Execute him at dawn." Daario leaned closer. "And the boy king?" She looked up at the burning tower. The sound of the crumbling stone was like music to her ears. "Let the fire judge him." And as the sun began to rise, casting golden light over a blackened city, King's Landing changed forever. The Lannister lion was burning, and the dragon had taken its place. By morning, King's Landing was no longer a capital. It was a graveyard. Smoke curled from the ruins of the Red Keep. Ash covered the streets like snow, and the scent of burnt flesh mixed with the salty wind from Blackwater Bay. The bells had long stopped ringing. There was nothing left to warn and no one left to answer. The people whispered her name now with both awe and fear: Daenerys Stormborn, Breaker of Chains, and Queen of Ashes. In the great square near the ruins of the Sept, the crowd gathered in silence. Farmers, beggars, merchants, children all watched with hollow eyes. At the center stood a wooden platform. Tywin Lannister was tied to a post, his golden lion armor blackened by soot, his eyes bloodshot from smoke, yet he stood tall, proud, as if he still sat on the throne. Daenerys walked through the square in silence, flanked by Unsullied on either side. Her silver hair flowed behind her like a banner of vengeance. Grey Worm led the way, expression carved from stone. As she reached the platform, Tywin looked up at her. "You've already won," he said, voice wroth but steady. "Why bother with a show?" Daenerys stepped closer, her voice low and sharp. "Because you never paid for your crimes." Because justice needs to be seen. You call this justice? He sneered. You burned a city to the ground. She didn't blink. So did your mad king. You killed him for it. The crowd stirred. Whispers spread like sparks. Tywin smiled faintly. You're more like your father than you think. Her eyes darkened. Maybe. But he burned innocence for fear. I burn monsters for peace. She turned to Grey Worm and gave a single nod. He stepped forward, drew his blade, and with one clean motion, it was done. The square didn't cheer. No claps, no cries of joy, only silence. Tywin's body slumped forward, lifeless. His reign over the throne, over his children, over the realm ended, not with war horns, but with the hiss of blood on wood. In the shadows, a boy watched, eyes wide, mouth trembling. Joffrey. He had escaped the burning tower, crawling through hidden tunnels beneath the keep. His crown melted into his hand, his golden hair covered in ash, his clothes torn, face blistered, pride shattered. He saw his grandfather's execution from a dark alley, hiding like a rat. His eyes burned, not from smoke, but from hate. She took everything. She humiliated him, and he would have his revenge. That night, as Daenerys stood in the ruined throne room, what little of it remained, she placed one hand on the Iron Throne. It was still warm. Daario leaned against a broken pillar, watching her. You did it, he said. You burned the lions out of their den. She didn't smile. Not all of them. He tilted his head. The boy? She nodded slowly. I want him found. Alive. He nodded in answer. Alive. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked up through the hole Drogon had torn in the ceiling. The stars were out, and for the first time the sky above the Iron Throne was open. The moonlight touched her face. She whispered, this was never about just a throne. This was about making sure no more monsters wear crowns. But as she spoke those words, Joffrey was already moving. In the tunnels beneath the city, he found what he needed. Gold, blades, servants too scared to refuse a royal name. And in his eyes now lived something darker than power, a thirst to destroy. He didn't want the throne back. He wanted Daenerys to suffer. And as the city tried to rise from its ashes, a new threat quietly prepared to strike from the darkness. Because sometimes dragons aren't the only things that breathe fire. Beneath the shattered bones of King's Landing, where rats ran freely and the walls still sweated heat from dragon fire, Joffrey Baratheon King, in name only, began to rise again, but not as the boy who sat on the Iron Throne throwing tantrums and ordering beheadings. No, the fire had burned that Joffrey away. What remained now was something far more dangerous, scarred, silent, focused. With Tywin dead and Cersei's body never found, only ashes in her tower, Joffrey was truly alone. But he had gold, he had secrets. And in the ruins of the city he found others like him, angry, bitter, hungry for revenge, men who had lost their homes, their families, their power. Lannister loyalists, former gold cloaks, and mercenaries left behind by Cersei's deals with the Golden Company. They called themselves the Ember Fangs, and they swore loyalty not to a crown, but to the boy who wanted to see the Dragon Queen fall screaming from the sky. Meanwhile, Daenerys walked through the city she had taken, not in silk or jewels, but in armor. She didn't smile, she didn't wave. She watched, observed, judged. The people bowed, but their eyes told a different story. Some were afraid, some were resentful. Many were silent. She knew what they called her when she passed, the Fire Queen, the Silver Flame, the Mad Girl of Valyria. Rumors had already begun to spread. She had burned thousands, roasted nobles in their beds, even let her dragons feed on the bodies of children. None of it was true. Not yet, but truth, she was learning, didn't matter. Fear did. Daario warned her one evening on the battlements, looking out over the broken skyline. They fear you more than they love you. She didn't flinch. Then they'll never betray me. He raised an eyebrow. You sound more like a Lannister every day. She turned to him, voice sharp as a blade. No, they ruled with lies and shadows. I rule with truth and fire. But even as she said it, Something inside her twisted, because deep down, Daenerys wasn't sure anymore if fire was enough to change the world, or if it would only burn it down faster. In the dungeons below the keep, Grey Worm stood over a prisoner, a spy caught sneaking toward the Queen's chambers, one of the Ember Fangs. The man's face was cut, bruised, but his smirk remained. "She doesn't belong on that throne," he spat. "No dragon does. The boy king lives. He'll take it back." Grey Worm slit his throat before he finished the sentence, but the message was already received. Daenerys summoned her council. What was left of it, anyway? Tyrion was dead, his bones, found under the ruins of the Tower of the Hand. Varys had fled before the invasion, or perhaps died in the fire. Only Grey Worm and Daario remained. She stood before them, eyes fierce. "Joffrey lives," Daario nodded, "and he's building something. A rebellion, maybe, or an assassination. I want him found," she said. "I want him found," she said. "Every tunnel searched, every traitor hanged. If anyone dares to speak his name with hope, burn them." Grey Worm didn't hesitate. "It will be done." But Daario hesitated. "Just a moment. Your Grace," he said carefully. "You are a dragon, but dragons don't rule with fire alone. The city needs peace now. You've already won. Don't turn this into a hunt for ghosts." Daenerys stepped toward him. "A ghost once murdered my family, burned my people, raped and conquered my ancestors. I will not let this ghost rise again." Daario's eyes darkened. He bowed, but the space between them grew colder. That same night, in the crypts beneath the city, Joffrey made his first move. He slipped through the sewers like a shadow, dressed in rags, his golden hair dyed black. He entered the home of a baker loyal to House Lannister and slit his throat while he slept. Then he took his wife and child hostage. From the window, he watched the Queen's men sweep the streets, searching, killing, burning homes in the name of loyalty. And Joffrey smiled. "She thinks she can rule with dragons," he whispered, holding the dagger to the child's neck. "I'll show her what fear really looks like." Because in the ashes of the old world, a new kind of monster was being born, and this time the fire might not be enough to stop him. 2 weeks passed. 2 long, bloody weeks. Daenerys had turned King's Landing into a fortress walls rebuilt with dragonfire-hardened stone, towers guarded day and night, and her unsullied patrolling every corner of the city. Anyone who whispered the name Joffrey vanished by morning. The people stopped talking. They stopped looking each other in the eyes. Even children played in silence. Fear had wrapped around the city like a noose. But Joffrey was still there, alive, watching. And slowly, he was poisoning the city from within. Each night, his ember fangs struck small but deep. They burned food stores, slaughtered patrols, and left messages scrawled in blood across the walls. The Mad Queen must fall. The Mad Queen must fall. Joffrey lives. The lion still roars. They never stayed long. They never got caught. The streets no longer belonged to Daenerys. Not completely. Inside the Red Keep, she grew colder, harder. Her silver hair no longer danced in the wind. It hung like a blade waiting to drop. She barely ate. She barely slept. She read reports of sabotage with clenched fists, pacing her chambers like a caged beast. Daario tried to reach her. "You can't rule lash and ghosts," he said one night, standing in her chambers, voice low. She didn't even look at him. "Tell that to the people who still believe in the boy king. You're turning into something they already fear. Give them something to believe in again." She turned then slowly, her eyes red with rage and exhaustion. "They don't deserve belief, they deserve order." Daario stepped closer. "What about mercy?" She looked away. "Mercy is what the Lannisters survived for so long. In the dark belly of the city, Joffrey sharpened a blade by candlelight. The child he had taken hostage had stopped crying days ago. His mother now followed his orders in silence, cooking food, cleaning blood off clothes, whispering prayers when she thought he was asleep. He wasn't. He never slept now. A map of the Red Keep lay on the table in front of him, smudged, torn, but clear enough. His dagger hovered over one mark, the Queen's chamber. "I think I'm a boy," he whispered to himself. "But boys grow up, especially in fire." He had no crown, no guards, no throne. But what he had now was hate pure, cold, focused. And he had one more thing, a secret that would shatter Daenerys from the inside. Back at the Red Keep, Grey Worm brought news that made Daenerys rise to her feet. They had caught a woman sneaking through the tunnels, a baker's wife, blood on her hands, her son missing. They brought her in chains, dragging her before the Queen. Daenerys looked down at her. "Where is the boy?" The woman said nothing. Her eyes were dead. Daenerys stepped closer. "Tell me, and I'll let your son live." Still silence. Grey Worm moved to strike her, but Daenerys raised a hand. "Wait." She crouched low, looked into the woman's eyes. "I was like you once, powerless. Angry, I know what it's like you once. Powerless, angry. I know what it's like to lose everything, but I also know what it's like to take it back." The woman flinched, just slightly, and Daenerys saw it. "Where is he?" she asked again, quieter this time. The woman's lips trembled. Then she spoke. "He's coming for you." That night, the guards were doubled, doors locked, sky patrolled by Rhaegal and Drogon. But it wasn't enough, because Joffrey didn't need an army. He only needed one mistake. He made his move at midnight, through a sewer grate beneath the Queen's private garden, dagger in hand, ash smeared across his face like war paint, his golden hair hidden under dirt and grime. He moved like a shadow, swift and silent, every step driven by vengeance. He reached her chamber door, slipped inside. And there she was, Daenerys, alone, staring out at the burning torches of her city. He raised the blade. But then she spoke, without turning. "I've been waiting for you." Joffrey froze. The dagger in his hand felt suddenly too light. His breathing quickened. "You thought I wouldn't know," she said softly. "You wear your hate like a crown." She turned, slow and graceful, no fear on her face, only fire. "You think dragons only burn cities." And then Drogon landed on the balcony behind her, shaking the whole tower. Joffrey's heart dropped. But he didn't run. He stepped forward. "I'm not afraid of you." Daenerys looked at him, eyes narrowing. "You should be." Joffrey stood frozen, the dagger shaking in his hand, his breath shallow, eyes wide, not with fear, but rage. Daenerys stood between him and the open balcony, a dragon looming behind her like death-given wings. The air felt thick with heat, like the very room could catch fire with one wrong word. "You think you've won," Joffrey spat, his voice trembling but filled with venom. "But they hate you, all of them. They call you the Mad Queen. You're not their ruler. You're their nightmare." Daenerys didn't blink. Her voice came soft, like distant thunder. "And yet, here you are, a boy in rags, hiding behind shadows. Tell me, Joffrey, where is your crown now?" He stepped forward suddenly, blade raised. "You murdered my mother." Daenerys didn't flinch. She chose the fire. "She was still my mother." He screamed. "You burned my family, my city, my throne." She stepped closer now, slowly. "Your throne? You sat on a stolen seat, built from the swords of better men. You ruled with cruelty. You ordered death for sport. You were a disease, and you're the cure." He hissed. "I'm the consequence." The dagger in his hand trembled. He raised it, but Drogon growled, low and deadly. The heat from his breath filled the chamber. Joffrey laughed suddenly, bitter and broken. "Go ahead, burn me. You'll prove them right. You're just like your father, mad and blind." Daenerys paused. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. Her past, her bloodline, the whispers of madness that followed her like a second shadow. She had crossed a sea, freed slaves, torn down tyrants. But here was a boy and enemy telling her she had become the very thing she hated. She looked at Joffrey, looked at the dagger in his hand, then looked at herself. And she did something no one expected. She turned her back on him. "You want to kill me. she said, walking toward the balcony. Do it. Joffrey blinked, stunned. She stopped at the edge, looking over her city. No dragons, no soldiers, just me. Silence filled the room. He raised the dagger again. Every part of him screamed to do it. She deserves it, he thought. She burned everything, but his hands wouldn't move. Daenerys whispered without turning, "You're not your grandfather, Joffrey. You're not even your mother. You're just a scared little boy playing with fire." And with a scream of pure fury, he lunged. The blade came down, but Daenerys spun fast as lightning catching his wrist mid-air. The dagger clattered to the ground. Then she grabbed his throat and slammed him against the wall, not with rage, but with power. Controlled, focused. "I could burn you now," she said, "but fire would be mercy." He gasped, clawing at her grip. She dropped him, let him fall. Joffrey crumpled to the floor, coughing, broken. "You killed my mother," he whispered again, weaker now. Daenerys crouched beside him. "And your mother killed a kingdom." She stood. Drogon moved forward, huffing, heat radiating off his scales. Drogon moved forward, huffing, heat radiating off his scales. "Grey Worm!" Daenerys shouted. Moments later, the Unsullied entered. "Take him to the dungeon," she ordered. "Let the people decide what to do with their lion cub." Grey Worm bowed. "And if they want him dead, then they'll see it done. I won't need fire this time." The next day, the square was full again, but not with screams or fire, with judgment. Joffrey, with judgment. Joffrey, bound and filthy, was dragged through the streets. The people he once ruled stared not with pity, not even with hate but indifference. He was just another fallen tyrant now, another relic of a family that brought nothing but war and death. The people voted exile, not death, not mercy, just silence. He would be sent away to wander the far corners of the world, nameless, powerless, broken. And Daenerys, she stood on the balcony, watching him go. Daario stepped beside her. "You didn't kill him." "No," she said, eyes on the horizon. "Because killing him would have made him a martyr. Letting him live makes him nothing." Daario smiled. "You really are a queen now." She didn't smile back. Instead, she whispered, almost to herself, "I was born of fire, but I don't need it to rule." And with that, the Dragon Queen turned from the past and faced the dawn of a new realm, a realm no longer ruled by lions, nor drowned in fire, but built, finally, on ash and truth.